musical linguistic objects.
Greetings from Cyberdelic Space. This is Lorenzo, and I'm your host here in the Psychedelic Salon. And to begin with, I'd like to thank Langvid, who made a donation for my Pay What You Can audiobook edition of my novel, The Genesis Generation. And Langvid, your donation is greatly appreciated and will go to help offset some of the expenses here in the salon. Now, today we're going to hear the final part of an interview that Timothy Leary did on KPFT Radio in Houston, Texas, in November of 1976, just a few months after he was released from prison. And as some of the comments I've received about the previous podcast of the first two parts of this interview stated, Dr. Leary seems a little bit more subdued than we've heard him before. But when he was asked about this, I think that his comeback was perfect. Now, I've not edited or cut out anything from this really long three-part interview, and while you're going to hear a bit more about his ideas concerning space migration, we're also going to hear what I think is a very interesting take on the presidency of John Kennedy. So, without any further ado, let's rejoin Dr. Timothy Leary and his questioners on a winter day in Houston, Texas, back in 1976, just a few weeks after Jimmy Carter won the presidency of the U.S.
The DNA code of every listener of this broadcast is a potential post-terrestrial who will be able to use telepathy, will be able to use the nervous system as a computer. You know, there are a few idiot savants, or a few people that kind of mutants that do have these incredible psychic phenomena now. We can't explain it. It makes us uneasy. We push it aside. There's no question that these psychic phenomena do exist in rare people. But they're like premature butterflies, and caterpillars don't like this because it's not time for us to be communicating in these new ways. So the sixth circuit of the nervous system is, we call it neuroelectric, and it's going to involve acceleration. It's going to involve an Einsteinian use of the nervous system, and Einsteinian ways of communicating with great rapidity, which we know the brain is capable of, which we can't use down here. There's been a cliche, you know, for dozens of years now. People say, well, we use only 10% of our brain, or we use only 1% of our brain, or there are more connections in the brain than there are atoms in the universe. How come we're not smarter? How come I can't balance my checkbook? Well, it's not time to use them. We're just discovering that the right hemisphere of the brain, for example, has functions and intelligences and receptive possibilities that the left brain doesn't have. Well, these neurologically and anatomically, these functions are there, and they will pop out. Those who have had really intense revelatory or mystic or psychedelic experiences know what I'm talking about. The interesting thing, that way of illustrating what we mean by the sixth circuit, neuroelectric consciousness and intelligence, the best example of that is Einstein. Einstein was a very interesting young man. Einstein was literally retarded when it came to talking and to writing. He didn't talk till he was, 6 or 7. They thought he was, and that's happened, by the way, with many of our, Darwin was another person. There are many of our greatest geniuses that were slow learners, really started, be considered mentally retarded. Einstein was doing something else, which was a pure sixth circuit phenomenon. Einstein spent a lot of his time thinking of what it would be like to be a photon. How about that? Those of you who are veterans of the 60s will know what I'm talking about. Here's this young Jewish boy exiled in Switzerland who was trying to experience what it would be like to be moving at the speed of light. If he was moving at the speed of light, his body would have no mass. He'd be pure energy. Well, I think it was the fact that he experienced this, not just in equations abstractly using laryngeal manual symbols, but he experienced it. It led him to write the great equations of energy and mass, which have totally transformed our understanding of ourselves and nature. So neurologic, which is this new system of psychology that I'm writing about, is an Einsteinian as opposed to Newtonian psychology. And the Sixth Circuit has to do with neuroelectricity, which is the sort of level you get at in the high, fast-moving psychedelic experience. Grass, marijuana is a Fifth Circuit experience, but when you get into those stages where your brain is clicking off, millions of items a second, and you're overwhelmed and inundated by avalanches and Niagaras of fast-moving Einsteinian visions, that's the way we're going to be operating. Now, LSD, I'll get into that right now, is a dangerous drug because it's basically a post-terrestrial experience. And for caterpillars to start taking a butterfly drug, it gives you perspectives, forecasts of what's to come, but you can understand why it was confusing and why in the 60s I was warning people. There are perhaps less than 10% of the population who should even consider, under the best circumstances of disciplined control, to take this drug, because LSD is not a hedonic, laid-back, multi-orgasm drug. It really isn't. It's a neurological experience. It's a Sixth Circuit neuroelectric experience, and it's basically in preparation for post-terrestrial life. All of the drug metaphors of the 60s had to do with getting high, of spacing out, floating off. I think these are accurate vernacular expressions of a neurological state that is to come.
Would you have maybe a few minutes to talk to the people who've been listening to you? We could take some phone calls.
Oh, yeah, listen to them, not talk to them.
Yeah,
Sure, I'd be glad to
listen to
listen.
them.
Sure.
I think you had a question.
I have one. There may be a more important one on the line. We can get that. Regarding the migration that you speak about, do you posit a coincident kind of apocalypse that mandates migration? People see things going to hell here on Earth. 1/3 of mankind is starving, and plagues on the horizon, and all kinds. A few weeks ago, there was just an incredible news story about an atomic blast in China that wound up in Pennsylvania. Did you see that story?
Yeah.
And there are many, many more examples of this. There are some respectable schools of thought that say that the apocalypse, in some form or another, is at hand. And I wonder if you see anything like this, and if this gives even more import to what you're saying about space migration.
Yes, that's an interesting question. We didn't mention this before. It's not a question of if we're going to leave the planet. We have to. We're being squeezed off the nest, just as birds, when they get too big, are squeezed off the nest. Now, maybe the think small people in the nest, one bird says to another, well, if we don't use our wings and we all huddle up together, if we all breathe in unison,
we can make it longer.
We can last another 10 years in the nest. But come on, the nest is the place that we're supposed to mature. There's an apocalyptic sense that we have to do something. You didn't mention another hard possibility, that nuclear proliferation. That there's no question that within 10 or 15 years there are going to be as many as 30 dictator-run countries where people like Idi Amin or Colonel Gaddafi, out of despair, out of no other thing to do, out of we don't give a damn anymore, we'll push a button.
There's talk of international plutonium smuggling,
Absolutely.
Even now, black market.
There's no way that you can prevent. Again, the only I'm really shocked by the people that are making a big deal out of plutonium smuggling, because the answers to this are: we got to have more police, we got to have more surveillance, we got to have more checkups, so that it's obvious that the only way that we can survive, particularly Americans, if we don't migrate, would be in a garrison society in which we would be in arms against the inevitable uprising of the Africans and the Asians against the have-nots against the haves. And there's no way that Americans are going to give up their two-car and their co-ed televisions. I have had some debates with European leftists who say, you Americans should cut your consumption in half, and you should give the poor people, half of your color televisions. There's no way that's going to happen. On the other hand, every Asian and every African has every right to want 2 cars in his garage and a color television in their house. Because if we have it, we can't turn around and say, I'm sorry, but we're going to limit growth. Yeah. Energy, too, where there's just not enough energy, possibly, to give the underdeveloped countries the survival needs, not to mention the material expectations that they have every right to demand.
I take it you're traveling the country talking about space migration
Yes.
and many of these other matters. So in a sense, I didn't hear you make this point earlier in a strong way, and I kind of appreciate the fact that you're not selling space migration on a doomsday hypothesis. But on the other hand, if we're firmly convinced that the apocalypse is at hand, maybe a harder sell would be indicated. And another observation is, you talk about European leftists who say maybe we ought to quit consumption or cut down. Do you feel that these kinds of efforts are frivolous? The idea of international development, for instance.
I think that growth limitation and lowering energy use and cutting down the speed limits and all that, I think that's wrong, because evolution, see, the history of evolution, we started underwater, we moved to the shoreline, we got to move faster and faster, dealing with more energy, we deal with oxygen, and we got calcium and built bones, and people talk about artifacts, I use this joke, but the first amoebas that began using bones, well, God had intended, that's the clear thrust and trajectory of evolution, to move higher and faster with more precision and more intelligence and more consciousness, including ecological consciousness. Yes, I think you're right that we should be a little more hard-hitting about pointing out that we don't have time.
Migrate or else.
That's right, yeah. And everyone doesn't have to migrate. Again, it's those who want to migrate can. Those
who
who
are interested in living.
I want to point out to your listeners that the last 5 Democratic presidents have solved this dilemma by going to war. It's always that irony of American politics that it's the Democrats that put us into war. Why? Because war produces a boom economy and heats up the Vietnam heated up the economy. Vietnam wars put more money in operation, and wars harness the energies of young people that have to have something to do. Now, John Kennedy saw this, and I'm not a great admirer of Kennedy's presidency. He was much too macho in his foreign policy for my taste. However, I think he will go down in history as one of the great rulers, like Queen Elizabeth or Queen Isabella or Prince Henry the Navigator, as he recognized this dilemma, that in order to fulfill his promises to the American people, we're going to grow, and he said to the minority groups, we're going to get you jobs. He knew the only way we could do that outside of war was space. And when he said we're going to be in the moon in a decade, it was partly because of his sophisticated understanding that that was a way of doing it without war. So we got to do something about the fact that 25 or 30% of black youth, for example, is unemployed, and there's no hope for any sort of a meaningful or productive life.
Okay, here's a good example now of a.
If you're worried about crime in the streets, I'm telling you, the solution to it is
well, I mean, we
harness
have
our energies in a space movement.
Okay, rather than try to deal with some of these more immediate temporal considerations that we can manipulate.
It's not either or. And I want to point out again that Newtonian thinking is either or. That it's either I have this territory or you don't.
Yeah.
Einsteinian thinking is both and. So I'm not saying we should cut down on social programs. I'm not saying we should cut down on any of our ongoing educational programs. Both and.
But maybe we could say we ought to examine our priorities and maybe plug space migration into such a list of priorities, along with international development and many other things.
I think the thing that the L5 people, Bob Wilson, Dr. Leary, have all pointed out is in the face of apocalypse, space migration not only is a necessity, but the availability of solar energy from migration then causes the apocalypse not to happen here by providing energy to overcome it. So the two actually go together. It's an either or. Either you leave and it's saved, or you don't leave and it's destroyed.
May I ask you a question?
By all means.
I've seen a copy of your book, What Does Woman Want?
Have you read it?
Well,
Embarrassing question.
I'll tell you, the taxi driver told me that he had borrowed the book and he would not, for fear of his own life, let it out of his sight.
Taxi driver, huh? That's great.
But I did look at the print, and I was very impressed with the fact that you capitalized the gender, my gender.
Well, it's a little more complicated than that. I have been very aware for about 7 years of the masculine chauvinism of our language, that most of the, as we all know, most of the general terms are masculine, like mankind and so forth. So as a consciousness discipline, because in the earlier years I was brought up to accept male chauvinism, I've tried to be very careful about never using these sloppy terminologies. And I also saw, as all of us see, Thomas Robin, for example, has mentioned it in the foreword to his book, Even Cowgirls Get the Blues, the problem that our language is so biased in favor of the male gender. So we invented words that will hopefully bridge the way to a better language. Whenever I use the generic term instead of he, I spell it capital S, capital H, small e, meaning both male and female. The word woman in the title of the book, What Does Woman Want, is spelled capital W-O, capital M-A-N. And then we use possessives like it's the general possessives usually called of mankind in his progress forward. We use the term her, H-I-R, meaning that it's a combination. Then if you're talking about woman, we use S-H-E or H-E-R, or a man, H-I-S. Is that clear? These are semantic exercises. While we're talking about books, I would like to recommend 3 writers that I think are saying something today. Thomas Robbins, who wrote the book Another Roadside Attraction, and Even Cowgirls Get the Blues. Now, this is the best writing about the 60s. It unfortunately doesn't take us forward into the 70s because it ends in an apocalyptic vision. But if you want to read an intelligent 1960s mind, and there are very few of them around writing books, I urge you to read Thomas Robbins. And then Thomas Pynchon's book, Gravity's Rainbow, I think is probably the best book ever written by anyone in the English language. It really takes a view of history and evolution and the merging of science and eroticism, which is very important to the future. And then we have here today in Houston Robert Anton Wilson, who was on this program yesterday. He, along with Robert Shea, has written the definitive spiritual conspiracy book of all time. It's a trilogy called Illuminatus, and it's a cult item that I think is going to become an extremely influential book in the near future.
Hello, this is KPFT. You're on the air.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, I have a question for Dr. Leary.
Hello, what's your name?
This is John Randall.
Hello, John.
How are you doing?
Great.
You've talked a lot about space migration, and I'm interested in how you feel about the government's position there. Obviously, the U.S. government right now is the one that's taking us into space. Do you expect that they'll remain the agents of our migration into space? And how do you feel about the government's ability to carry that out in the manner that you think it ought to be?
Listen, I want to thank you for raising that question because I meant to mention that earlier, but we got so many things going I forgot to. So congratulations to you for picking up on that. Now here's what I say about that. Even among the most liberal people, there's the automatic assumption that space belongs to the government. Isn't that right? And somehow that NASA own space, and it's NASA who's going to decide who's going to go, and you have to be an astronaut or you have to have a civil service rating. Now, I think that that's a dangerous assumption. Our plans for space migration involve private enterprise, cooperative, collaborative groups of people getting together to build their own world. Now, NASA will have to play a role in this. NASA will have to do the rocketry. They've already designed and rolled out the first version of the retro rocket. You know, that's the ship that launches like a rocket, loads like a truck, and lands like a plane, which makes shuttling cargo up there relatively inexpensive. Now, our attitude is this. NASA should be considered to be like Amtrak or like the Postal Service. It's NASA's job simply to run the trains and the trucks up there. But the government has no right to ask us why we're going or to decide who's going on those trains. We have the money to pay for it. It's our responsibility to build our habitats up there exactly as we want them built, and the government should stay out of this. Now, sure, NASA would have a right to examine our luggage and make sure we're not smuggling atom bombs up there, just as they now check us when we go on airplanes. But we must divest from our thinking the notion that the taxpayer is going to pay for this or that the government's going to run it. It's got to be a private enterprise. Now, I don't mean capitalist absentee ownership. The people that go up there should own their 5 acres and own their share of their own world. And they pay their cargo and they pay their fare to go up and to come back. But the government's role is advisory and in no way should control the space migration habitats. Remember, we're just building condominiums up there. And just as we can build condominiums down here without the government doing it or taxpayers paying for it, that's the model that we should carry up there. We're very much against centralized socialism taking over. You know, the Russians have plans now, and we'll have space colonies up there within 5 years. And you better believe that those space colonies will not be designed to encourage cultural experimentation and new lifestyles. So it's very important as an American tradition and a Houston, Texas tradition of independence and freedom that we keep the government out of it, except in their role of busing us up there.
Okay, I have a question. Specifically, how would you guide someone who is considering getting involved in this very space shuttle program that you're talking about? I have the opportunity, I'm strongly considering applying to the mission specialist astronaut. They're going to take something like 15 positions, and they're going to be used as astronauts to shuttle people up and down.
Yeah.
And I'm seriously considering applying for that. Now, of course, there's a lot of other people who are going to apply, and my particular chances are of a certain percentage that is probably fairly low. But would you encourage me to do such a thing?
Absolutely. Get all the training you can. At any time, see, what we're going to do is you get all the training you can and learn all you can, and within 2 or 3 years, if you really are good at it, we'll offer you a better job working with us. But remember, there are 2 aspects. The rocketry, the retro rockets, all that part of it, we're not interested in. See, think of it this way. A bunch of us, a few thousand of us are going to go down to Jamaica, we're going to go down to some island, we're going to build a new commune down there for 10,000 people. Now, we have to fly down there with Pan Am or TWA. I don't want to know anything about rockets. I don't want to know anything about how a TWA 747 works. That's not my job. My job is to help organize the colonists who are going to build a condominium, which is not going to be in Jamaica or the Virgin Islands, but it's going to be up there. But any help that you can give us, I'm serious, that within two years, maybe even within 6 months, we're going to be in the position of buying away from NASA the younger and most imaginative specialists, because they can come in with us as full partners instead of being bureaucratic civil servants, obediently working with the bureaucracy. But my advice is, by all means, get all the training you can.
Well, could you educate me a little bit? I guess I have been following the whole night, the discussion. When you say we, which group specifically are you talking about?
Well, I explained that there are many of us who are banded together under the collective umbrella of futurism. This includes Barbara Hubbard's Barbara Marx Hubbard's Committee for the Future in Washington. This involves the L5 Society. I'm not speaking for them, but I'm including them as part of the futurist movement. There are many futurist groups, all of whom agree that space migration is inevitable and soon. I'm also working, as I said earlier, with several managers of large industries and consultants to industries who are going to help us keep this non-capitalist and non-socialist. That is, going to keep it a free, cooperative enterprise.
Yeah, I can dig on that.
Good.
Well, thank you, sir, very much.
Thanks for your question, and I want to tell you one final thing. You know, of about, I don't know how many there were, let's say there were 12 astronauts who walked on the moon. At least half of them have come back, as you know, mystics and raving about they were the first post-terrestrials. They were the first ones that could look back on this planet and see it as a little blue agate. Now, most of these men are now in favor of civilian control of space migration. Rusty Swaggart, to give you one, who's published in the Coevolution Quarterly his opinion that space migration should be civilian and not government or military. Okay, good luck.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Let me ask you one question about that call.
That was a good one, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Obviously, governmental sources and things like that should not necessarily determine who goes up there. The question is, how do we determine who goes up there, or what is the opportunity offered for people to go along?
Well, see, who's doing the offering? It's we. Who decided who would migrate from Europe to America? That's the model you must keep in mind all the time. It's not a big jump, migrating into space. It's been made to seem that way because of Buck Rogers and Star Trek and pseudo-militaristic space movies. But actually, it's less dangerous than the move from Europe to America was. Now, who decided who migrated from Europe over here? It was families and friends. It was the Pilgrim mothers and fathers who shared a collective vision. Who determined who would migrate from New England across the plains to the west? It was the Mormons who decided to do it. There were hundreds of kooky cults and psychedelic hippy-dippy religious groups in the 1840s and 50s who backed the migration west. So it's always been that way. It can't be a government, or it can't be a big monolithic civil service selection. It's going to be self-selection. Those that want to go and are willing to invest their time and energy are going to link up with people of similar minds who share their vision of, they can be vegetarian bisexuals, want to get their own thing together. Fine, do it. But it's going to be self-selection and small group linkage. It's always been the way everything is migrated and mutated in human history.
So we'll just buy our ticket and make our move as we see fit.
But we, meaning a group of like-minded people,
individuals, and
you got to work. You got to work hard to do it because there are no free lunches here. We're not going to give you a ticket. You join us, and we'll put you in touch with like-minded people. But we've got to do it together.
Mm-hmm. Shall we listen to some more listeners?
Yeah.
Yeah, that last caller almost asked the same questions I'd like to ask. I'd like to go a little deeper into the financial aspect of space migration. Where can this money come from? I know it's going to take vast amounts of money to get there. Once we get there, I'm sure that, it's going to be much cheaper after we once get into space, because we're going to have, vast amounts of energy and all kinds of beautiful, wonderful things coming right there in space, floating right along there beside you. All these raw materials are there.
Yeah.
But how are we going to get into space if we don't use our government and big business?
The demographic economics is very interesting. If you have 10,000 people that are banding together and investing their money in what is essentially a real estate operation, a collective real estate operation, 10,000 people each raising $100,000 puts you into talking distance, particularly if mass production of retro rockets will be accelerated. So that what we tell people is, if you buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house right now, I don't know how you can put a down payment on it. If you have the equity in an ordinary single-dwelling house in the suburbs of any American city right now, in 10 or 15 years you can trade that in for your 4 or 5 acres up there. Now that's the simple economics. The more practical economics is this, that solar satellite stations, which will be beaming energy down here by a microwave, will pay all of these projects back within a matter of, 5 or 6 years. Also, the manufacturing facilities that will take place in space because of zero gravity vacuum atmosphere, it's called the Third Industrial Revolution. Almost all of our complicated electronic and manufacturing techniques will be facilitated. It's literally cheaper to build many items up there and drop them back down. So the space migration is going to pay off, just as migration to the New World paid off very quickly in the early days.
Oh, wow. Yeah, right. Okay, well, I can see that. Yeah, so eventually, most families or people who want to go will just sell their homes here, which won't be any problem at all, since it's getting so crowded.
Yeah, and real estate's, booming in the Houston area. What is it, 15% a year? That's what it is in San Diego.
It's terrible, I know that. I'm fortunate to own my own home now. I guess I could just hang on, yeah. Yeah, I can see it coming. Right, okay, well, thank you.
Okay, now we'll send a salesman around tomorrow to sign you up. Okay, good night.
Take another one.
I'd like to propose an alternative evolutionary scenario for your comments, see what you have to say about it.
Good.
I was interested in your thoughts about robothood and post-robothood, and it seems like the characteristic of the condition of post-robothood is the ability to understand and to affect changes in your robot nature.
Right.
Now, if you view evolution as a goal-directed system, as you say, the goal of the evolutionary system is greater specialization, greater energy consumption, and we can see technology as the last stage in man's evolutionary development. So,
well, no, I wouldn't buy last. It's the next.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
right. Well, we're in the technology stage now, so
Yeah.
it's the present result.
Right.
Now, this goal has so far begun to kill the world through the byproducts of technology, through pollution, radiation, and such. Why not allow the post-robothood consciousness to alter the goal? Since it can understand its nature and affect changes in it, why not allow that post-robothood to alter the goal of evolution to maintaining equilibrium with nature and maintaining man's position vis-a-vis his natural world and natural environment, as opposed to discarding it as man discarded the seas and, in effect, take control of our evolution and live with the situation as we have it?
Absolutely, I encourage you to do that. See, not everyone's going to go. According to Gerard O'Neill, who's the mastermind philosopher of all of this, and whose ideas I'm parodying in a very robotic fashion tonight, according to O'Neill, if his timetable is kept, by the year 2020, the population curve will start dipping. That is, there'll be more people leaving the planet than are being born. If this happens within about 20 years after that, let's say the year 2050, and that's within your lifetime,
Right.
The planet Earth will be back to less than 2 billion, perhaps between 1 and 2 billion people. In other words, the planet Earth will be back to the pastoral, rural forest state that it was like 200 years ago. So our plans for the planet Earth are that those that want to stay down here, the pollution comes from overpopulation
Right.
and from the frantic energy surge down here.
Right.
So when we're taking most of the migrants up there, those that want to stay down here as preservers and curators of our former culture will be honored and will be helped, and the pollution, Mother Earth will bandage up and green over the strip mining and the pollution very quickly.
Granted, she will survive.
Yeah.
Since evolution is energy consumptive in its more advanced stage,
It's energy productive. Because you can't consume what you can't produce. It's energy transforming.
Okay.
And the more energy we transform, the higher our evolutionary status.
Right. Do you foresee us continuing to rob the terrestrial resources of the Earth for energy?
Yeah. Well, number one, see, your term "rob" is a loaded emotional word which I don't accept. When RNA RNA is ruthless. When DNA says to RNA, "Get me some calcium," well, I tell you, RNA goes out there and it robs all the calcium it can get to build a bone. DNA is, in that sense, exploitive. That it has to expand, it has to keep moving, and it's exploitive. It's negatively exploitive. At least you don't understand it. So I don't think we're robbing anything. The purpose of space migration is to get us up there where energy is free and natural resources do not dislodge other forms of life. The best way to get us back to a pure, natural, rural, pastoral Earth is to get most of us up there and to get all the manufacturing and the energy production up there.
But what about the massive entropy debt that will be occurring by this?
Well, the whole entropy notion and the conservation of energy, these are 19th century concepts which went along with the Protestant aesthetic. There are new concepts about entropy now, negative entropy. That negative entropy is intelligence, and that there's a very interesting dialogue between entropy and anti-entropy, so that I think it's all balanced nicely. I don't think we have to worry about these things if we see our role as evolutionary servants to get things moving faster and farther. These moral issues of robbing and so forth, I think we can do away with. There are no good guys or bad guys. They're just people who understand the evolutionary situation and those that we have to help understand the evolutionary situation.
Well, do you foresee this as being a continuing process, as possibly forever and interminable? Because as I'm not a PhD, but as I understand the concept of negative entropy is a localized phenomenon, whereas in the universe as a whole, that creates an entropy debt which will ultimately be equalized.
Well, instinctively, I've never agreed with that definition. I think it comes from the Protestant ethic of the 19th century. And intellectually, I'm now told by quantum physicists that no, the anti-entropy situation gets more exciting as you probe the nucleus of the atom. As a matter of fact, quantum physicists tell us now that the basic element, the basic particles of energy matter are bits. Bits of what? They're bits of information. You could define the entire universe with all the galaxies as being like an enormous brain. That every energy process, even the inorganic and the quantum and the atomic and the electronic and even the subnuclear are bits of information or of intelligence. So that the deeper we probe into the physics of nature, the more anti-entropy we discover. And we discover that the basic nuclear particles are particles of intelligence and part of that the universe is basically an intelligent consciousness.
Have you been in any dialogues or contact with Dr. von Bertalanffy?
Yeah, I know of his work. I'm more in tune with the works of John Archibald Wheeler from the physics department in Princeton, and people like Jack Sarfati and Saul Paul Sirag, and people in Berkeley who are involved in some very exciting quantum physics experiments. And I would urge anyone who's interested in the future of where evolution is going beyond even our bodies to write the Physics Consciousness Group. That's 1155 Jones Street, Suite 506, San Francisco 94109. These are quantum physicists who are coming out with new theories of the consciousness of basic elemental particles that's farther out than any Hindu text or any science fiction book. And I'll repeat that address. It's the Physics Consciousness Group, 1155 Jones Street, Suite 506, San Francisco, 94109. And you get your mind blown by what the quantum physicists are up to. Thanks for your call.
Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, this is Timothy Leary.
This is Robert Buscemi. I'd like to know what your sources of income are and if there's an element of charlatanism in it.
Well, I make money by lecturing at colleges, and I'm not making a lot of money, and I don't know what you mean by charlatan. Am I in this for the money? No. I could make a lot more money by doing other things. Do I believe in what I'm saying? Yeah, I sure do. But ask me some more questions.
That's what I was interested in. Thank you very much. Good evening. How are you?
Yeah, how you doing?
Very good. I wanted to ask one thing. The last part that you talked about in saying that the entire universe was an intelligent being. Is this kind of a Chardin notion? Yeah. And then the one other thing I wanted to know is the DNA programming itself. It makes it sound like DNA is completely in the driver's seat, and I wondered if perhaps DNA wasn't also affected perhaps by the whole universe.
Absolutely.
And is this something that's like associated with not only time but also space, like position in the universe?
Absolutely.
Very good.
Yeah, I could comment, number one, on your first question. Chardin's philosophy, which was powerful but somewhat vague, is now being supported and confirmed by the most advanced research in atomic physics and nuclear physics and quantum physics. That's the exciting thing about the Chardin movement, that it's being tested and confirmed experimentally. Now, the second question about DNA, yeah, DNA is obviously the intermediate form of intelligence. You gotta say that DNA is smart because she's kept herself alive on this planet for 2.5 billion years and is showing no signs of being licked. So that DNA is an intelligence compared to which the human brain is a simple but effective robot force. But DNA itself and the biological life itself is, again, a servant of nuclear intelligence. The quantum physicists use a phrase which I really love, and it has really blown my mind. They talk about the quantum projection booth, from which are projected the atomic and the electronic, and eventually the complex protein molecular structures that make up life.
Okay, now, the DNA itself, in its complexity and etc., I've often read that in some way some scientists are associating aging process itself with this, after it's, just millions and millions and millions of times of duplicating.
Right.
Not only does it have the chance to evolve and advance or mutate, but also that if it misplaces messages enough, it will eventually not have the information it needs to do the process to stay alive. Now, I know that when Robert Anton Wilson was in town and was pretty much giving your neurologic a lecture, he brought up the idea of increasing the life, say that once you've reached the first 100, that at that point you'll probably be given the chance to go for the second one. And
yeah.
If after that, now, will DNA itself actually be able to evolve to support that life, or is that going to take the robot mind helping it along? Will we have to synthesize?
Well, I think DNA has programmed us to get to a point where we can understand how to control the aging process. Genetic engineering will allow us, certainly within your lifetime, and probably in the next 10 or 15 years, to dial and tune the DNA aging loop to the age that you want to be. Now, I'd like to recommend a book which has just come out, which is the up-to-date picture on longevity and life extension. It's called Pro-Longevity. That's Pro-Longevity. It's written by Rosenfeld, who was a former science editor of Life magazine. It's published by, I forget. But you can get it at any bookstore because it's hot. He's been on the lecture circuit and the Johnny Carson show. His name is Rosenfeld, and the book is called Pro-Longevity. And that's the most up-to-date statement on immortality and life extension. And I think you'll be convinced after you read that book that, again, it's not a question of can we live forever, but how soon are we going to get it going?
And as I hang up the phone here, and thank you very much, I'd like you to just say over the air if you have ever met any extraterrestrials or know of any around, or what, if there are, what are they doing here, and how do they like it?
Yeah, I think that the astronauts are post-terrestrials. They've left the planet and come back. I hope there are more, but I don't believe in UFO passive theories that they're going to come to us. We're down here in the water, and we got to climb out of the 4,000-mile atmosphere swamp and get up there to join them. And who's them? Them is us in the future. Okay, good night.
Good night. What kind of concretely are you doing now? How are you spending your time in this role that you're playing?
Well, as I said several times, I consider myself to be an evolutionary agent. I think that media, electromagnetic media, television and radio, are instruments of the DNA code. See, the use by the nervous system of the airwaves and the television frequencies, it's not to sell soap or it's not to sell Pepsi-Cola. Electromagnetic impulses are triggers to the DNA of those who are ready to mutate. They're the mutational signals. If you study how insects, for example, move from the cocoon or larval stage to the post-larval stage, it's always radiation. It's always electromagnetic signals. What sends the birds south in the fall? It's the angle of the sunlight, which hits the bird's retina and then is transmitted to DNA program. Hey, baby, it's time to head south. And of course, the birds follow pathways which are electromagnetic. That's just how does a monarch butterfly migrate from California to the hills in Mexico? I can tell you how. There are red line radiation belts that are like neon lights that they just follow. We don't pick them up because our nervous systems are not yet at the state of the Sixth Circuit neuroelectric reception. So what I'm doing is I'm using electromagnetic energies to mutate people. In my lectures, I use the 9 muscles of my vocal cords amplified by electricity to hit the eardrums of the listeners with signals that are then transmitted to their nervous systems, that's then transmitted to their RNA and to the DNA, telling them it's time to mutate. At the sound of the bleep, if you listen carefully, I will mutate you. From the sound of the bleep, okay, bleep. You are not a terrestrial. It's time for you to leave the Earth. Now, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 3 will hear that message and say, yeah, it makes sense. Others won't because they're not ready to mutate. It's not programmed in the nervous system to be in the first wave. There's always a first wave and a second wave and a third wave in the mutation migration. I send another mutational signal. I say, at the sound of the bleep, I'm going to mutate about 10% of you. Okay? Bleep. You never need die. Scratch death from your appointment book. Now, some people say, oh, what do you mean? Death is the meaning of life. Okay, it's all right. But 10%, 20% are hearing the signal. Those who are ready to use their brains to decipher the death programming will accept the notion that they need not die. To summarize, I'm an evolutionary agent using electromagnetic energies to broadcast evolutionary signals. And the signals are leave the planet, get smarter, and learn how to live for as long as you want.
You're spending really full-time now transmitting these messages.
Well, full-time is a little... I try to party as much as I can. I try to get 8 hours sleep. I perform the terrestrial functions. You have to think, when you move into the more advanced circuits of the nervous system, you can only do that if you get the first 4 circuits down. You can't be worried about economic problems. You can't be worried about social problems of shame or public opinion or what will City Hall think. You've got to be very clever and smart in avoiding the traps that will allow you to get put in prison or will allow you to get immobilized. So part of my time, I have to take care of my body. I have to take care of my terrestrial survival needs. I'm starting a nationally syndicated radio show, which is called Conversations with Higher Intelligence. I'm working on a audio-visual presentation that will go along with my lectures, which will amplify and intensify the vocal messages I'm sending out, and hopefully will mutate higher percentages of the audiences that I talk to. I'm working with a group of managers who have access to some of the top industries in the country. I think that management is very important. You can have good ideas. I think everyone who's had a mystical experience or a rebirth experience has had some clue to the genetic code, has some understanding that we are involved in an evolutionary process. But the jump between the knowledge which came to millions in the 60s who turned on, the jump from that receptive knowledge to the point where you can talk about it and transmit it accurately and logically, as Robert Anton Wilson can, for example, that's a big jump. But even Robert Anton Wilson's logical and intellectual presentation of our evolutionary situation is not the answer. It's got to be marketed. It's got to be distributed. It's got to be amplified. It's got to be broadcast so that everyone on the planet can hear this message. Now, the people that put things together are managers, and right now I'm trying to assemble a group of about 12 managers. Managers are people that are successful somehow putting things together, putting people together. Managers have to be very pure in the sense that they're not doing it for their own ego rewards. They're not trying to rip off. I'm trying to get managers together who will manage the next evolutionary movement, because it does involve management. Someone had to get Columbus's ships together. Someone had to outfit them. Someone had to get the water and the food. Someone had to recruit the sailors. That sounds rather social or even crass. I want to tell you that RNA sees the management intelligence of DNA. Every time a cell is built in your body, you had some good management. You had RNA managers who went out and found the phosphorus and found the calcium to build a bone cell, or went out and found the carbon, or found the particular amino acids that were necessary to build whatever DNA needed to get her moving to the next position. So I'm trying to find managers and put them together. My role is catalytic at this moment. My job is to number one, inform people of what's happening, and because I have a lot of charisma, and because I have a lot of electric magnetism, and people want to listen to me and hear me, and I'm very, very modest about it. It's nothing to do with me. It's because my signal is true and is genetically accurate. Let's have no illusions about that. People come to me, and then I can put managers and I can put high-energy people together to build the molecule that's going to take us off the planet. It's all molecular. It's all the human alchemy of putting people together to build up the larger syncretic groups that are going to move us and the species to the next stage of evolution.
Dr. Leary, this might sound a little bit facetious, but I'm going to ask it.
Let's have it.
Yeah, okay. I understand that mutations are generally brought about by the influence of cosmic radiation on genetic material. Are you a cosmic ray?
No, I'm a DNA-motivated robot who has been, I think, mutated by some light waves kicking around. No, I'm a domesticated primate who's mutating and playing the, as I say, I'm a broadcaster. Station WDNA. I don't have any rayettes either. See, one of the lessons I learned from the 60s, and it's all been invaluable, is, sure, the FBI outwitted us in the 60s by dirty tricks, okay, but that's not good guys or bad guys. They were just smarter than we were. I think we've got to broadcast more effectively than ABC and NBC. We've got to, and we should be able to, because I think we're smarter and we're purer in our motives, so that, by all means, build up the biggest audience ratings you can and broadcast as widely and as intensely as you can. I'll back you any way I can.
Great. That's kind of funny that you should be talking about professional type management and that sort of thing, because I always had the feeling that people like Andy Warhol and yourself were about 1,000 times more adroit at operating the subtle fingers of the media than people like myself, who were just running controls behind the scenes and making up ads and all that sort of thing. I had the feeling that people like you and Warhol, and there were a number of others as well, were actually on to something about being able to manipulate their public image in a very creative and useful way. It's interesting to me to hear you feel that you're still inadequate in that direction.
Well, I confess past inadequacies. I'm getting better. And I'm learning. I spent, in the 7 months I've been out of prison, I spent an enormous amount of time around radio studios and with radio people. And I'm very slowly completing an apprenticeship in how broadcasting is done. Because it's complex, I think radio is the most important medium right now. Television, as we all know, is too cumbersome. It's too expensive, and there's too much writing. It's too uptight, and it's too network-oriented. But radio, particularly with the FM boom and the public broadcasting boom, you know, each commercial station now has a narrow target. They're broadcasting to the 18 to 23-and-a-half-year-old male. Well, that's great. The more specific our signals can be, and the more aware we are as to the audience that we're talking to, then the more precise it's going to be. So I'm very interested in particularly FM radio, and as I say, I'm going to start a nationally syndicated show, which I hope will get around the country.
The secret is that it's one-to-one. It's just completely intimate. You don't listen to the radio unless you're alone.
Yeah. There have been some questions about continuing our conversation, and I want to tell the listeners that I will be lecturing at the University of Houston on January 26th, 27th, and 28th. These programs are sponsored by the University of Houston Program Council. At that time, I hope that I can meet personally the people in Houston who are interested in space migration and intelligence increase and life extension. I enjoy being here in Houston. It's a future city. Like any mutational city or group, it has its problems, but I think Houston is looking towards the future, and I look forward to coming back January 26th, 27th, and 28th to the University of Houston. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Timothy Leary. Certainly have enjoyed it.
You're listening to the Psychedelic Salon, where people are changing their lives one thought at a time.
So, I now learn that Dr. Timothy Leary performed at the University of Houston in January of 1977. And although it was the school from which I got my law degree, and although I was actually living in Houston at the time, well, I had no idea about his appearance. Basically, I was just running myself ragged trying to make a living, which is probably how most of us have to live for the majority of our lives right now. Hopefully, the drum beats of new social orders all around the planet are at long last beginning to be heard once again, and maybe life won't be quite so difficult for us, huh? Also, I find it interesting that the last thing that Dr. Leary and his questioners talked about was the importance of a one-to-one communication medium, and they were talking, of course, about the radio. Now, can you imagine how excited they would have been had they known that by today the excitement of massive social change movements all over the world is being webcast in the form of livestream.com videos that are coming directly from the demonstration sites all over the country. Not to mention YouTube, all of the iDevices, and of course podcasts that cover almost every human interest you can name, with hundreds, if not thousands, of new programs sprouting up every day. Thanks to the internet, wireless devices, and all the new free tech, well, it's a new world for mass communication, and fortunately, I don't think that the establishment gets it yet, so let's make the most of it while we can. You know, it's sometimes spooky at all the coincidences that come up when I more or less randomly pick a talk to play here in the salon. I've had this Timothy Leary material here for a couple of years now, thanks to Dennis Berry, who was the custodian of the Leary archive at the time I got it, and to Bruce Damer, who got the two of us together and facilitated getting the digital files to me. And so I could have played this talk at any time, but for some reason I'm doing it now, and maybe I'm reading a lot into some of Dr. Leary's remarks, but parts of what they were discussing sounded to me as if it had been recorded just last night in Liberty Park in New York, or in any of the hundreds of other cities around the world right now. And remember, this interview was recorded in November 1976, less than 2 weeks after Jimmy Carter won the presidency of the U.S. You know, a lot has happened in the intervening years, and yet when they got talking in this long ago interview about the unemployment situation of young black people being so high, well, they could have been talking about what's still going on right now. And so when somebody acts surprised at all of the pent-up frustration coming from the Occupy demonstrations around the world, well, they just haven't been paying attention, because this frustration has been building up for a long time in the 99% of us who have to work for a living. Now, getting back to the part of the interview that we just listened to, I also found it quite interesting to hear Dr. Leary talk about getting governments out of controlling outer space, which by default, more or less, due to budget constraints, seems to be exactly what is happening with all of the new civilian space operations taking place. He was a little ahead of his time on many things, but that's certainly one of Timothy Leary's dreams that seems to be in the process of taking place. And while I've said this in past podcasts, one of the things that I disagree with Timothy Leary about is his idea of space migration. But because one of my dearest friends, Michael Shields, sees it differently, I should confess that, well, I haven't yet read the material from the L5 Society, and so I'm going to give him a chance to add his 2 cents here as well. And here's part of what Michael had to say in a recent email to me. Lozo, love the new Leary 76 material and your evaluation of Obama. Right on. I first met Tim when I produced a performance talk with him and H. Keith Henson of the L5 Society at the University of California, San Diego in 1977 on these topics. Stuart Brand finally did a book on space colonies in 1977 too. And by the way, I'll link to that in the program notes for this podcast, which you can get to via psychedelicsalon.us. Now, getting back to Michael's email, he went on, last year, Stephen Hawking said the main activity of humanity should be building backup copies of the biosphere/Gaia, as some kind of destruction is the fate of 99+% of human-like intelligence emerging in the galaxy. Okay, Lozo, hope we can talk about this soon. Thanks, Mike. And so I guess that in fairness, I should hold my technical reservations in abeyance until at least after I read Brand's book and a few others that discuss the possibility of human space colonies. I guess that in my heart, I don't want to see us humans infesting the galaxy until, well, first we figure out how to get along with each other here on Earth. But my main reasons for not thinking that space colonies are very practical come largely from my conversations with Dr. Bruce Damer, who has done a lot of work with NASA. He actually knows men who walked on the moon, and he's had to deal with the realities of keeping even a small number of humans alive in space. Not to mention the physical problems that they encounter when coming back to Earth after 6 months up there. So, as far as our species physically leaving this planet goes, well, I simply don't see it. What I do see, however, is the space migration that is already well underway, and right this moment, you and I are both taking part in it. I'm talking about our migration into cyberspace. You know, within another decade, it has been predicted that over 1/2 of all humans alive will be connected to the Internet, and that the power required to run that vast electronic interconnection of minds will, it'll be about 20% of all the world's power generated. Interestingly, I've also heard that our bodies use about 20% of our caloric intake each day just to power our brains. Well, I could go on, but I'll let you take that idea on your own little journey into metaphor land. However, I hasten to add that my guess is that both of those power estimations are probably not much more than good guesses. Now, I wonder if you were as surprised as I was when one of the men asking questions very seriously asked Leary the question about whether he saw an apocalypse on the horizon. And what got me is not that some people are thinking those thoughts right now, but that some serious-minded people were worrying about it back in 1976 too. Actually, at least it seems to me, we humans are always sensing a coming apocalypse simply because life for us is constantly changing. So, we're always coming to the end of something or some phase of life, but each ending also seems to bring on some new and wonderful beginning. It was really sad for me when my children left home to start out on their own, but now I have these wonderful grandchildren who bring me all joy and no responsibility. So outside of the fact that I had to get a little older to make that change, it's all good, as the legendary John Sinclair says about my closest ally, cannabis. Now, before I go, there is one request that I want to pass along, and that comes from fellow Saloner, Rak Razam, who is working on an ayahuasca documentary. Here's what he writes. I'm hoping you might be able to help track down some Terrence audio. And here's the quote he's looking for. And then, if you've taken enough DMT, something happens, for which there are no words. And then McKenna goes on to say, a membrane is rent, and you are propelled into this place, and language cannot describe it accurately. Therefore, I will inaccurately describe it. The rest is now lies. Now, Rack goes on and says, I think it's from the Time and Mind talk, which there are ample transcripts of on the net. But I'm looking for the actual audio of Terrence talking to sample in the forthcoming documentary, Aya Awakenings. Any help tracking down those audio quotes will be much appreciated. So, if you know where to find that audio, I'm sure that Rack would greatly appreciate hearing from you. And I'll put a link to his documentary trailer for you to check out if you want. And you can also find a way there to contact him if you find an answer to his query. Now, to close, I'm just going to briefly mention the fact that the Occupy demonstrations all over the world on Saturday are a good sign that people everywhere are joining in. Actually, I think we should give credit to the demonstrators during the Arab Spring, as well as the brave Spanish demonstrators who have been at it since May. And their risks and sacrifices paid off, with Madrid holding the largest of the Occupy the World demonstrations, which were recently held on the 15th of October. And Madrid had over 500,000 people that showed up to protest the fat cats who are pushing down the 99% of us who are, just trying to get along as best we can. Unfortunately, the police in the U.S. acted very unprofessionally in many locations, with the New York City police running over protesters with motorcycles and charging the crowd with their horses and injuring numerous demonstrators. Even here in quiet little San Diego, the police essentially rioted and acted like barbarians when they attacked the demonstrators and tore down their tents. And I also saw police brutality in Denver and Boston, which, by the way, also have live feeds of their demonstrations that you can watch at occupystream.com. And there you can choose from a couple of dozen live streams from various cities around the world. And so as to keep you in the mood for the long struggle that has now just begun, I'm going to close this 3-podcast series with Timothy Leary by playing a couple of sound bites from the Occupy Wall Street demonstrations this past weekend. And I'm doing it mainly because I'm quite sure that if Dr. Leary were alive today, he'd be right down there with the demonstrators. Now, the first voice that you'll hear is that of Sergeant Shamar Thomas, who is a U.S. Marine and he served in Iraq. And this is the audio from a clip that I posted on my personal blog, which you can find at lorenzohaggerty.com. And in the video, you can see that Sergeant Thomas is directly confronting about 30 New York policemen. And here is what this brave Marine had to say to those officers.
Have a good night, guys. You see it, baby. They don't lie.
Let's go.
They don't lie. They don't lie. They don't lie, tough guy. This is not a war zone. This is not a war zone. These are unarmed people. It doesn't make you tough to hurt these people. Let them know. It doesn't make you tough to hurt these people. It doesn't. I don't care. I don't care about these people. I put in my work. It doesn't lie. It does not make you tough to hurt these people. There's nothing tough about it. Nothing. If you want to go fight, go to Iraq and Afghanistan. But you want to be here hurting U.S. citizens. Where is that in the contract? Where is that in the contract? Leave these people alone. They're U.S. citizens. U.S. citizens. U.S. citizens. U.S. It does not make you tough to do this to them. It doesn't. Stop hurting these people, man. Why y'all do this to our people? I've been to Iraq 14 months. For my people, you come over here and hurt them. They don't have guns. They don't have guns. They don't. Why are you hurting these people? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. How do you sleep at night? There is no honor in this. There is no honor in this. There is no honor in this, man. There's no honor in this shit. There is no honor in this shit. There is no honor in what you're doing to these people. No honor. How do you do this to people? How do you do this to people? How do you sleep at night doing this to people? Come on, sir. How do you do this to people? Let's go. How? You're here to protect them. You're here to protect us. Protect us. Why are you hurting U.S. citizens? This is the United States of America. Why are you hurting people? If you want to go kill and hurt people, go to Iraq. Why are you hurting U.S. citizens? Why? What sense does it make? Do you get honor out of this? Do you get honor out of hitting people with batons? Is that what you get? Why are you doing this?
Let's back up here. We got to walk down the block all the way to the police.
We're just trying to move you up the block.
This is unbelievable that y'all are doing this to people. That y'all are doing this to people.
Come on, let's go. Keep moving.
Why are y'all doing this to people? No, I know that everybody's not bad. Why are y'all doing this to people? Y'all walk around in riot gear like this is a war. These people don't have guns.
It's a little crazy. Back down.
How can I not act crazy when y'all are hurting people that are protected?
Let's back up.
My whole family protected this country. I understand, but I'm not out here trying to hurt these people. I'm not walking around trying to hurt them.
Let's walk down the block, please.
But your history doesn't. Who's in Iraq with you?
So why do you allow this? Why are they walking around trying to hurt people?
Let's go, folks.
Keep walking.
Please, I'm asking you nicely. Let's walk down the block, please.
And I can't speak. Y'all want to shut me up. Y'all want to shut me up. Why are y'all walking like there's a war going on? Nobody has guns. Why are y'all treating people like this? This is America. Why are y'all treating people like this? Why are y'all gearing up like this is war? This is not war. Let's go, folks. We can. This is not war, please. Why are y'all acting like this? Nobody has guns. It takes a tough guy to act like this. Let's go, folks. Stop fighting without guns. Nobody's trying to hurt you guys. There are no bullets flying out here. There are no bullets flying. How tough are you? How tough are you? There's no honor in hurting unarmed civilians. You get no respect.
What did you see tonight that bothered you?
I was here on October 5th. I saw them beating people, people that had nothing to do with anything, just grabbing people out of the crowd. There's no honor in that. My mom, my father, everybody has served in Iraq, Afghanistan war. I did 14 months in Iraq. My father was in Afghanistan. My mother did a year in Iraq. We fought for this country. I don't come home. I'm in New York City. I am from New York City, and these cops are hurting people that I fought to protect. There's no reason for this. There's no honor in hurting unarmed civilians, and I won't let it happen. Have a good night.
What's your name?
Owensville, New York. Sergeant Shamar Thomas. Owensville, New York. Hey, Mr. President! Huh? Oh, I don't know what they're doing. They walked away. They're scared.
So how was that for telling the cops how the cow ate the cabbage? Huh? If there was a medal given for demonstrating, I think Sergeant Thomas should most definitely receive one. In my opinion, he is the true voice of the American people. And in closing, I want to play a clip that I recorded when Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine showed up, along with his guitar, and he played the lost verses of Woody Guthrie's famous protest song, This Land Is Your Land, which, as you already know, was actually written as a counterpart to the One Percenters anthem, God Bless America. So here now is Tom Morello joining the Occupy Wall Street demonstrators just a couple of days ago.
This next song was written by the great rebel Woody Guthrie. Woody Guthrie would have been 99 years old. And if he was alive, he would have been headlining today's event. When I first heard this song, I didn't realize what a class warfare anthem it was. Because they censored out the subversive verses. For your pleasure today, I'm going to reinsert those verses. Because Woody Guthrie knew that history's not made by presidents or popes, or kings or queens or generals, CIA kingpins running dope. History's not made by nine-robed men, or billionaires or bankers. It's not made by them. They might throw a little money around. Wondering who can be bought. Some might find they're cheaper. And some stronger than they thought. Well, I'll stand or fall right here. In my country. In my home. I used to think that I was alone. I ain't alone no more. Mic check. Me and my people are hungry. Me and my people are through. Me and my people are ready. rears its ugly head.
Wherever it rears its ugly head.
But for the next minute and a half, brothers and sisters,
For the next minute and a half, my brothers and sisters,
we're gonna have a good motherfucking time.
we're gonna have a good motherfucking time.
So this is what I'd like you to do.
So this is what I'd like you to do.
Listen and pay close attention.
Listen and pay close attention
To the last secret censored verse of this song.
to the last secret censored verse of this song.
Then I'm going to ask you a question.
Then I'm going to ask you a question.
And I'd like you to please answer.
And I'd like you to please answer.
And then together we're going to sing.
And then together we're going to sing.
This land is your land.
This land is your land.
As loud as anyone has ever sung it.
As loud as anyone has ever sung it.
Occupied Park in New York City.
In Occupied Park in New York City.
And then finally. Incredibly. Incontrovertibly. Everybody in this whole damn place.
Everybody in this whole damn place.
Front to back.
Front to back.
Side to side.
Side to side.
Wall Street bankers.
Wall Street bankers.
To jugglers and people on stilts.
Jugglers and people on stilts.
We're all going to jump the fuck up in solidarity.
We're all going to jump the fuck up in solidarity.
Are you with me, Occupy Wall Street?
Are you with me, Occupy Wall Street?
Are you with me, Occupy Wall Street?
Are you with me?
The night watchman needs to know, and he needs to know right now, are you with me, Occupy Wall Street? Mic check.
Mic check.
It was a complicated set of instructions.
It was a complicated set of instructions.
So I'm going to go through them again.
So I'm going to go through them again.
I sing the verse.
I sing the verse.
You listen.
You listen.
I ask the question.
I ask the question.
You answer.
You answer.
Together we sing.
Together we sing.
Loudly.
Loudly.
And then everybody.
And then everybody
jumps the fuck up.
jumps the fuck up.
Are we ready, people?
Are we ready, people?
All right, here we go. In the squares of the city, in the shadow of the steeple, near the relief office, I see my people. Some are grumbling, and all are wondering if this land still made for you and me. Tell them!
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands. From the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me.
Look up three, this land
It's your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands. From the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me.
And for now, this is Lorenzo signing off from Cyberdelic Space. Be well, my friends.